Hi, Shawna. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, our pleasure. I'm really looking forward to diving into our topic today. We have a few things in common. So personally, I'm looking forward to this. And I think a lot of our guests will really find all of this interesting. So what I would love to do to start is, could you share with our listeners kind of what you're currently doing in the health and wellness space? And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, well, what I do is kind of just share what I'm able to day to day that I'm doing in my own home to help make our lives a little healthier, a little less toxic, and kind of just whatever that brings up for the day or week. And beyond that, I just recently wrote a book and it will be launching in just a couple of weeks. And so I'm excited to get that out into the world and see how that impacts people too.
Yeah, that's great. And you predominantly do this all through social media, specifically Instagram. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Can you share with our listeners a little bit about how that all came to be? Did you kind of just wake up one day and decide you wanted to be an influencer? Is it something you stumbled upon? Give us a little bit of how that happened.
Yeah, I never would have signed up for this if I knew all it was going to entail. I did not want to be an influencer. It's very awkward. Yeah, no, I kind of backtrack a little bit. I grew up very conventionally, like a child of the 80s and 90s, and everything was just fine with my mac and cheese and SpaghettiOs or whatever. And I thought I was healthy. I thought I was well until I wasn't. And I started having some, like sinus infection / migraines here and there. And then I would, go to the doctor and take antibiotics and steroids, and it would go away. And then they started coming more and more frequently until I was having just horrible chronic pain 24/7. The last year, it was like 5 years of this. And the last year of it, I was in pain 24 hours a day for an entire year. And at the end of that year, after taking, the antibiotics and steroids over and over, I got a teeny tiny hangnail that turned into a staph infection, that turned into MRSA, that turned into sepsis. And I was on an IV antibiotics for a week and very, very scared. I was on a month of oral antibiotics after that and was begging my doctors. I mean, by this point, I'd seen like all the ENTs, all the specialists, just everyone. And I was begging them. I'm now at like infectious disease, like help. I don't want to keep doing the same thing. I'm not getting better. I'm getting worse. And I don't like taking these antibiotics all the time. They're like, there's nothing else you can do. That's what we do. And I wouldn't accept that. And I was terrified. So I just started kind of learning about inflammation was my gateway drug into wellness, and learned about inflammation and discovered I am so inflamed. And so I just started making some changes to my life so that I could feel better. And lo and behold, within days, I was pain-free for the first time in over a year. And so I got very excited about this and started sharing information with friends and family that I knew were having signs of inflammation too. And lots of them got very excited too and took some steps and saw major changes. And so it kind of just really like ignited my fire, and I continued to share, and I would share things, on my personal Facebook or Instagram page, and friends kept nudging and nudging and nudging me to make a blog or something like that, and had total imposter syndrome. And it's like, I'm not doing that. No one's going to read it. No one cares, but I had been sharing so much about the things I was doing on my private page that I was like, not everyone's interested in this. And so eventually it was like, okay, I'll make a separate page just for the health stuff. And it just really kind of quickly grew, and very organically. I did not set out to grow. I got excited when more people came along, because it's exciting that more people want to know about this stuff. And it felt like I wasn't so alone, and I could be kind of helping people while I was, raising 2 little kids at home. And it's just been kind of a whirlwind, but also again, very organic and very encouraging, but a little overwhelming too.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I think that that's kind of the most beautiful stories that happen that way, in the sense of, I think there's people, at home that are kind of doing all of the things, right, to become these like major influencers, and maybe like their heart's not in it, in a sense, right? Like your heart was in it from the very beginning. And I believe that that's usually, why good things happen, or why somebody would look at your account and think to themselves, she really cares, right? Because it wasn't your goal to, have almost 200,000 followers. Your goal is just to help people learn what helped you in a dire situation.
Yeah.
And so you don't work one-on-one with clients. It's predominantly just all through social media education.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. And to kind of add to that too, I was a school teacher. I taught fourth grade. I taught other grades K through 5 for many years. So I have like training and background in education and educating others. And it's something that I enjoy doing. So I think it kind of like organically led to that too. And I stopped teaching to stay home with my kids. And so I'm at home and like still have this like teacher bug inside of me, so it just, I think all of it married really well together to create kind of this, just like I said, a kind of like an organic situation.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And the innate teacher, that again is just something that you loved doing before, this was part of your life. And so, yeah, that's so great. So tell us a little bit about what is kind of, obviously your Instagram page is a little less toxic, and your goal is to kind of teach about toxicities, whether it be in our environment, what you're putting on your body, in your body. What is kind of your main focus? Like if someone comes to your page and you're like, if you had to kind of coin yourself as, what is your biggest kind of goal as far as getting across to your audience, as far as information?
That's a good question. I never really thought about it so much in that sense, but I think it's just looking at our everyday life and realizing the things that we're using in, on, and around our bodies and how they can be contributing to our health or to our demise, and not becoming overwhelmed by it or becoming, a fear-based or anything. That we're just kind of looking and saying like, okay, well, this is going to run out or wear out. What can I replace it with? And then taking small steps like that so that over time we can have big impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I checked out your Instagram page, what I loved was that like you kind of do make it seem like it's little steps, right? Because for so many people, if you're already in this like health and wellness mindset, you're like, oh yeah, I'll buy an air doctor, or I'll get, this, and you can like do these big purchases, or you understand the importance of that stuff. But for people that are new, sometimes just switching out their toothpaste and the stuff that they're cleaning their countertops with is a big step, right? Yeah. And so I think, some practitioners can maybe go like too big, all in with, clients or with what they're trying to get across on social media. And it might scare some people away. Like, I need to buy a $400 air doctor. Well, I can't do that. And I saw one of your posts and it was like, just dust regularly. Whereas like, that's free. You could, make sure that you're removing the stuff that collects a lot of that, toxic, those toxic particles. And so I like your kind of really accessible approach to it that doesn't make it kind of seem overwhelming to somebody that has no clue what it is we all believe so deeply in.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. And, I've been doing this, like I said, for 10 years, and I can become overwhelmed, even though I've taken so many steps. It can be really overwhelming. And I think that I've seen so many people kind of look at it from the outside and say like, that's too much. I can't do it. So that overwhelming feeling, I want to help people avoid that. And then I've also seen people like kind of dive in head first and take on way more than they can sustain and then bow out really quickly. And I just don't want that for people. I want everyone to know that you can live a healthier life. You can have your home and life be a little less toxic, and it does not have to be expensive. It does not have to be overwhelming, and it does not have to derail you. It can be something that can be easily kind of stacked into your life over time, and that it will make a difference even when it feels like small steps. Because, we can do all the things and like buy the air filters and the water purifiers, but if you're still doing all the little things that you aren't realizing have a big impact, you're not going to get the help that you need. So you can't just kind of buy your way to wellness. You got to live it out. And it's, I think, a lot of those simple, small steps over time that make a big impact.
Yes. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I think you said you don't want it to be overwhelming or people to think that they have to do it all at once. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I know you're a mom and I'm a mom, and friends will say to me oh my God, you're letting the kids eat such and such, and I'm like, yes, because 98% of the time when we're not at a birthday party where other kids are eating, a cupcake with a little bit of dye swirled in, they're not eating this stuff. And so it doesn't completely derail their system in a way that it would if they were eating it all the time. I am the furthest thing from a perfectionist. I never will be. My husband might want me to be a little bit more attuned to things in a more perfectionist type of way, but like, it's not my thing. And I think that that's important for people, clients, followers to understand, is that you can be doing a whole lot of good without kind of being this perfect type of non-toxic, model for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think extremism is toxic, or perfectionism or fear. So those are things that I want to be a little less toxic about too.
Yes. Yeah. Good point. Yeah. Because toxicities don't, or as far as our body internalizes, the inflammation from toxic type of things, right? It's not just what we're putting on our body or what we're putting in. Sometimes thoughts can be toxic. People can be toxic. Relationships can be toxic.
Yes. Stress, fear, all of it. Yeah. Those also lead to inflammation.
Yes. Yeah. Do you talk about that on your page at all?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because sometimes that can be the way that people are getting the most toxins in their life. Truly. Yeah. Okay. So if we could kind of switch gears a little bit, because I think people might be listening and they're like, well, what do you mean? Like, her business is just social media. She doesn't see clients one-on-one. What are like your main revenue streams from being like, on social media? How does that kind of become like a quote business for you?
I can tell you kind of like how it evolved. So I was sharing all these things, right, on my now public page, and just that I'm doing in the home, or like, oh, I got this new thing, and, showing it. And one of the things I had invested in around that time was our water filter. I had like been saving and like researching all the different ones and waiting for sales, and like finally got one. So I like kept showing about it, and I was so excited about it and showing how to clean it and all these things. And I just kept talking about it. And then people kept asking me for a discount code. And I'm like, I don't have one of those. I don't know what that means. And then people that were following me reached out to the brand so many times to tell them. And I didn't have like a large following at all this time. I want to say it was like 1,000 or 2,000 people, and which is still a lot of people, but it's not like where you usually get all these like affiliate relationships, right? So they had reached out to the brand so many times, bugging them, saying like, you need to give her a discount code. That the brand reached out to me and they're like, hey, do you want a discount code? And I was like, sure. And then they're like, oh, okay, so you can take this much and you can allocate some for the discount, and the other you keep. I'm all, what? Like, I had no idea anyone made any money on social media. I didn't know how blogs worked or any of it. So I kind of wrestled with that for a minute. I'm like, okay, well, I want people to save and be able to get this thing and I'm like looking at everyone else's discount. I'm like, oh, that's why they give 0 or 5%, because they're keeping all this. I'm like, well, I don't want to do that, but I should probably be compensated for my time. I just totally wrestled with it, and then came to like a balance there that I still feel good about. And then from there, I kind of learned, okay, this is what people do. Now I get what discount codes are. So next time I'm sharing about a brand, I just reached out to them, but no one wanted to really like partner with me at that point. Cause like I said, I didn't have like a huge following, but I didn't care. I was just like, well, when it happens, it happens. But then, it grew, like I said, kind of very quickly. And so I just kept doing that over time. Well, if I'm going to share about this, I should see if they'll offer a discount code to people, whether or not they will compensate me or have some kind of a commission. And I've just continued to do that over time. And that in and of itself is like pretty substantial, or can be. And outside of that, that's been pretty much it. I haven't done anything else outside of that except continue to share here. And then I was approached by a publisher a year and a half ago that asked if I would like to write a book. I'm like, well, people ask me all the time for a cookbook, so I guess I could do a cookbook. And they said, no, let's not make that your first book. And I'm like, first book? Like, freaked me out. Like, you want me to write more than one book? And I didn't think I had it in me. And I have a friend that's helping me out, like my one and only employee, because this just kind of grew more than I could manage. I'm like, can you please help me? I can't even respond to DMs anymore. And those are so important to me and whatever. Anyway, so she was like, you're writing this book. She went looking through all my content. She's
That's
like,
a good friend.
She's so good.
Yeah.
And she's like, you already have all this information here. So she just literally copied and pasted my information into like a document for me. And I looked at it all and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a book. So I did it. And the first day I shared about it for like pre-sale, that it was available for pre-sale, I like put off sharing about it for so long to like nervous and blah. And so I finally share like, I wrote a book. It's not coming out for like 3 months, and people went bananas and bought like thousands of copies the first day. Like hit the bestseller list. It was like number 36 overall. And like, it was crazy. I mean, it's obviously tapered off since then. I haven't really been promoting it much, but so that's all I've got.
Yeah.
Got discount codes and I wrote a book. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, that's so exciting. Everybody needs somebody in their corner who's like, no, 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 you're doing this. This
Amen.
thing you think you can't do and you're too scared to do, you can do it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna help you. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I just don't even know when I was going to have the time to do all, and I don't have the time. I have 2 little kids. We homeschool, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, and I have friends and family, and there's all things that go on with life. But I've been just consistent with small things. And if I can't show up on social media because I'm giving my energy and attention to writing a book, then, I have to try and there's always reconfiguring balance for me, especially as things have like grown faster than I would ever have imagined. I just have to always be kind of looking at, okay, how do I keep my life in balance? Because I can't like crash out or I won't be able to do any of these things or serve anyone. So it keeps looking different in every season.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it's a good reminder to any kind of coach who's listening who, we do have a ton of copy. If you're, writing a blog or you're, writing emails or you're writing, social media posts, it's a ton of information that it doesn't feel like a book because you're putting it out in like little spurts over time, a few times a week. But if you were to kind of compile it, it's a ton of information. Not that everybody needs to go write a book, but my point is, if you don't have a book, we wouldn't think of ourselves maybe as authors but we all kind of have the capability to take, something small that we're good at and do something bigger, which is obviously what you did. So that's great. What's the book called?
A Healthier Home.
Okay. That's great. And it's out, did you say February?
Yeah. Valentine's Day.
Oh,
yeah.
That's great. That's
and
exciting.
It weighs 1.43 pounds. Like, oh, love. That's love.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. And it's like, what the most important organ? Well, yeah, our heart is the most important organ. I would argue our liver is probably right there with it, but right, we need our heart to keep going. That has to keep beating. So that's great. Oh, yeah. I love that. Okay. So I'm curious because a lot of our coaches, obviously myself, but a lot of our coaches that might be listening, their moms or, their dads, a lot of, people who have families. Mm-hmm. What is kind of your biggest challenge as a parent, as a mother, with kind of creating a more toxic-free environment for your home, for your kids, potentially even if it's outside of the home? So maybe you have to do a really good job kind of in the home. Do you kind of find that there's like this one thing that's challenging? How do you tend to like navigate it specifically when it comes to your children?
Yeah, I think in the home, it feels very easy for me because it's just what we do. It's all we know. People ask like, how do you get your kids to eat that or eat so well? And I've never like got them to eat. It's just what we eat. It's what I serve. It's what we do. It's our practice. And I have that kind of that educator heart where I try and really inform my kids about what we're doing so that they're not fearful of it or they understand it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that it would really be anything that exists in the home, but I think it's the outside things that are less under my control, but I don't want to have like such a grip over either. I want to have balance there too, but it's, like the birthday parties or just being exposed to things that we can't control all, like where my home is located right now. We've got like the LAX and a refinery and a huge electrical yard, like all around me. And I'm like a couple blocks from the 405 freeway. Like, there's some things I just can't control right now. Right. So those are harder things because they're just not within my grip. But, or, like grandparents or outside family members and other friends that we hang out with that maybe they don't eat the same way or do the same things. That can be a bit of a challenge kind of navigating because I don't want them to judge their friends or their friends' family or say anything that might make their friends feel not good about what they're eating or doing. And just trying to navigate all that with 2 little ones, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I always my like one saying to my kids, because I'll never forget the day that there was an ice cream truck outside of my son's baseball practice. And my thing is like, I'll give you ice cream. You can have popsicle, but you're going to have the ones that I know don't have tons of dye. It's not like filled with chemicals, and those are in our freezer at home. So let's go home and we can have one there. And he said to me, all of the kids who are getting something from the ice cream truck, do their parents not love them? And it's like, oh, wow. Okay, we need to have a conversation. I was like, no, their parents actually love them just as much as I love you. The thing is some of those parents just don't know maybe what's in the ice cream. Some of those parents choose to make a different decision for their family. But the choices that I make are the choices that I think are best for you, the choices that are best for our family. And other people will make different decisions with other things other than just food, so it's kind of, I think, super important, because you never know what's going to come out of their mouth.
Right. Yeah.
Other people like,
yeah.
oh, you eat that? There's dye in there.
Right.
Like, and I never want them to be judgmental or say, because the truth is I don't like to be judged, right? For being a mom who likes to make healthier choices, right? So I try to instill that in them. And I think it's super important for them to just understand that everybody makes the best choice with what they know. And this is what I know as a mom, and this is why I'm going to make the choices that I'm making, and explain it to them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have two kids that are like very different in their personalities that way too. Or one of them's like, I'll eat all of it. Like if I give them the choice, like this one has dye and we know that that's not great for our body. Well, and I have one that's more fearful and one that just has no fear at all. And so when I present the information, I have to like give it in a way that is not going to create fear in this one, but this one's going to have like a deeper understanding of it so it can make a more informed decision, Yeah. I feel like that's how I try and share with the world too. They really help me to be better at sharing with a broad variety of people who might be hearing, who just have different convictions or experience or understanding, too. So yeah, just navigating all of that day in and day out, I think with little ones is challenging, but in a really refining way.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. My two oldest, we homeschool too, and they go to a co-op, and they did like this science experiment where they put Skittles on like a plate, and then they pour water in the middle, and all the dye runs to the middle and makes like this tie dye. And one of my son was like, I know those Skittles had dye in them, and so I didn't eat any. And my daughter ate probably 15 of them, and she came home and was like off the rocker, and she's like, I'm sorry. My son was like, yeah, how could you forget? So like, yeah, two completely different ends of the spectrum. Yep.
We've had a very similar experience in a lot of ways, but yeah, and the one is like, my tummy hurts. I'm like, okay, so I'm glad you're noticing how your body feels. What do you think contributed to that? We'll see how long that lasts, though. Yeah. Just so tempting, those bright colors.
They are, yes, and the sugar. Yes. Okay, so as far as kind of like your book, does that teach a whole lot of? Is your book more of kind of an extension, essentially, of like your social media, as far as what you're trying to convey, educate?
Yeah. So it's, the subtitle is The Room by Room Guide to Make Any Space a Little Less Toxic. So it's essentially, I think it's more like a cookbook than something that you would just like read through once and be done with. Like I want it to be something people can refer to at any time. Like, oh, you know what? I'm ready to make this swap in this room, or this thing's worn out. Like, what should I replace it with? Or, I'm ready to tackle the pantry, or whatever it might be. So it's kind of like a resource guide that you can turn to and get direction with, or support or encouragement. And it also has a lot of my tips and tricks, like my duvet hack, or DIY recipes for like cleaning products or face masks. It's literally, it goes every room of the house, and we'll have tips, tricks, recipes, and hopefully very helpful information so that you can continue to make your home a little less toxic over time.
Yeah, I think that's such a great way to approach it, because I think this is why people love social media, is because like it's a place to go back to and be like, oh, where's that post that I saved? Right. Or, oh, so many people don't have time to like sit down and read like a novel, right? Where like you need to be, know what was on the last page to get what was on this page. And yours is kind of serving as like this resource type of, I think people will probably really benefit and love that.
Hope so. I mean, I keep referring to it because I'm like, oh yeah, what did I put in that, or what did I say? Like, because so like I can't catalog it all like right in my brain and access it like Rolodex or whatever. So it's been helpful for me.
I'm sure. And probably if people approach you or people that, whether they be friends, family, like you're able to kind of say like, here's all my stuff.
Yeah.
And
All here, like concise and cohesive. Yeah.
yes. I'm just curious. We usually ask like kind of like when it comes to starting a business, but we already got like that was kind of organically done. What was the most challenging part when it came to writing the book? Might have just been saying yes. It might have been, but what was for you kind of the most challenging?
I would say time and just life. I signed the contract and was supposed to start writing it, and at the exact same time, my mom got really sick and ended up losing vision in one of her eyes. It was a really stressful time, and I was pulled, really thin. Plus, I've got the two little ones. I was also homeschooling my nephew at the time, and so I've got three kids here. I'm homeschooling. Life was a mess, and it was like birthdays, holidays, this, that. It's very busy. I'm already very busy. That's why I felt like I should not be adding one more thing on. But, I made it work one afternoon or two afternoons a week with help from your grandparents and aunties, and got it done. But yeah, I would say it was just really life and finding those pockets of time and still being as much as what I want to be for my family and friends and community at all the other times.
Yep. Yeah. Because it can kind of feel like if you're, doing all the things, how can you add one more thing to your plate and still be doing the other things right?
Yeah.
Well, I always say if I'm going to add one thing, something else is going to suffer, but I try to like make the others like at least spread thinner, where you're, trying to allocate, whether it be time, resources, or things that need to get done.
Yeah. It's like that when you're, that kind of like minimalistic mentality with the home, like one thing out, one thing in, or whatever. And I have to do that with time also. Like if I'm going to add this in, something's got to give somewhere else. And it already didn't feel like there was anything to give, but you make a way.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What is one of your like favorite, like tips? Like if you had to, so like one of your favorite or your biggest, making things a little less toxic tips, whether it be, I don't know, like what you're cleaning with, or is there like one thing that if somebody came to you and they said, or if somebody coaches are listening and they're like, one thing that clients would kind of like love to have switch in or out, is there one thing that you find like gives a major bang for its buck that you kind of have just like a personal conviction for? Just curious.
I feel like if you ask somebody else that knew me, they'd probably have a really good answer for that. I have a hard time thinking of things about myself, like in the moment. But I do think that it's kind of like that really step-by-step kind of habit stacking approach that is what I'm most well known for and what I want to convey the most. So I would probably say it's that. When I was writing the book, I came up with an acronym that's ALLT. Is that what they're called, acronyms? But it's like, assess, and then you let go of things, and then level up the things you have, and then give it time, right? So that everything over time is going to be a little less toxic. Even like from the very first moment that you do that, you're assessing, right? You're already making your home less toxic because you're becoming more aware. And then you're going to let go of things that are no longer serving you. So I think for me, I think that's like the overall, like if I were to I've actually put it in the book that it's a quick start guide. Like this is your quick start guide, refer to ALLT, and then you just keep doing that. And you won't believe how much change will happen in 6 months or a year or 10 years,
Yes. Yeah. I love that. And ALLT, obviously a little less toxic. Yeah.
Yeah. But if it was like one recipe or something, I don't know. I switched out cleaning products was one of the first things that I did. It was our pantry and then our cleaning products. But I have been making my own cleaner for the home, just using the rinds of used up lemons in vinegar, and I'll let it kind of like saturate in there, and it becomes a lemon infused vinegar. And then I dilute that half of the vinegar, half water. And that's like a multi-purpose cleaner that can clean just about anything. Add a little baking soda for other things that require a little more scrubbing. And yeah, that's great. And I love the smell of lemon. So to me, like it smells good versus, toxins.
That's great. So if people are listening, where are kind of all the ways that somebody could find you? So your social media accounts, whether you have a website, the name of the book again,
Yeah.
the places where you show up to be your teacher self.
Yeah, I think you'll find me most often on Instagram. It's a little less toxic is my handle. And I do have a website, and that's a little less toxic.com. And I have cataloged like all of my recipes, whether it be cleaning products or food, are all in there under a little blog tab, but also like all my discount codes. So if you're looking for any kind of resources, either of those places would be really helpful. And I have a YouTube and stuff too, but I'm just not active. I can't do all the things. So there are some things there. And then the book is called A Healthier Home, and it's the room by room guide to make any space a little less toxic.
That's great. Good. And that's coming out in February, but you can get it on pre-sale now. Yeah.
Yep, you can order it pre-sale now. And if you order pre-sale, I am finalizing my thank you for everyone that has bought it pre-sale. So hopefully you will get in on that window too, and I can get you some special little gifty gifts.
That's great. Yeah. And it sounds like it's kind of, a little similar to Dr. Cabral's rain barrel effect in the sense that it's, kind of a resource. I mean, sometimes I flip through it still now, Dr. Cabral's book, and it allows people to kind of just have something that they can refer back to support them, no matter kind of where they are in their toxin-free journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very much that. I even refer to, I didn't know that he had when I first came up with like how I was imagining in my head, I saw a lot of people sharing a bowl that spilled out, but I'm like, no, it has to have a spout because we have detox organs, right? So in my head, I came up with, because I like to host a lot, like a big beverage dispenser. And so I like showed people that. And then I later learned that, or somebody probably shared with me right then, like, have you seen this? I was like, oh, the rain barrel. Yeah, that makes sense too. I just love Dr. Cabral and his work so much. And I don't know why I hadn't seen that, but that's a wonderful book and one on my shelf, and I love it so much.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for being a guest on the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast. This is such a fun interview, and I appreciate you sharing all your toxin-free wisdom with our listeners.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to be here.
Okay. Thanks so much, Shawna. And we'll look for the book to come out, and we'll be in touch soon.
Okay.